Okay, so here's a really interesting question. What do the following have in common? Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali of Tunisia, Ali Abdullah Saleh of Yemen. What do these guys have in common? And Bashar al-Assad in Syria. What they have in common is that all four of them, over the last decade and a half, have decided, principally, in the post-2000 years, the early post-2000 years, all of them decided that they would change their economies from socialist economies, where people had a strong social safety net and guaranteed employment. The government was the employer of last resort, that they would change these governments in Tunisia, in Yemen, in Egypt, and in Syria. They would change these to be more like what they viewed as the United States and England. In other words, they would impose Thatcheronomics, Reaganomics, what are called neoliberal reforms that were being promoted by the World Bank and a whole bunch of other agencies that basically operate the World Trade Organization. In fact, when Assad made these changes in Syria, cut the social safety net, cut back on Social Security, cut the power of unions, busted unions, actually, in Syria. When he did all these things, he then went to the World Trade Organization and said, may we be members? They said, not quite yet, but you could be an observer. You can come to our meetings. We'll get you there. These guys were all, I mean, this article is amazing. Absolutely astonishing. The neoliberalism, keep in mind, even though it's got the word liberal in it, the neoliberalism means conservative economic policies. Right? In Europe, liberal means what we call conservative here. So the Syrian policies were indistinguishable from Western neoliberalism. Bashar al-Assad, his main goal was capital accumulation while equality and distribution were neglected. While the regime used its power to benefit the few on top, the villages and medium-sized cities such as Daraa and Hama were abandoned. Islamic charities and schools stepped in. I'm reading from the Daily Beast here, this Daily Beast article back from April of last year. Islamic charities and schools stepped in to fill the vacuum that the state created by shrinking the welfare facilities in these neglected areas. You go on to note that the policies of Bashar al-Assad were directly intended to transfer the public asset into the hands of crony capitalists, privileged networks, and corporations in order to increase the wealth of his inner circle. Now, in this regard, they point out his father was an old-line socialist. Let's make sure that the people are in good shape, and then, we'll go about trying to make things more efficient. But sometimes efficiency isn't the goal of government. Sometimes the efficiency shouldn't even be the goal of business. What should be the goal of government or of business is what's best for the people. There's a reason why we, the people, say we're going to allow business to exist in our country. And that's that ultimately, at the end of the day, yeah, you're going to get some people who are rich. You're going to get some products that are made. But why do we do that? Because it will ultimately benefit society. And once you put it in that frame, then, simple questions come up like, well, in that context, then, why would we allow cars that aren't safe to be on the highways? And the answer is we don't. Or, why would we allow unsafe products to be sold? We don't, by and large. In the article, in this Daily Beast article, they heavily departed from the original Ba'ath Party slogans voicing socialist aspirations. These sweeping changes left the Syrian people in a dire state of neglect. After the death of his father, Bashar al-Assad implemented the so-called Damascus Spring and the Committees of Civil Society, this is all caps, intended to introduce a limited amount of political reform so that the neoliberal policies of the state and accumulation of wealth could prosper. Privatization was encouraged. Foreign entities such as private banks were allowed to join the Syrian market. Citibank and HSBC came to town. They raised, the Syrian government attempted to satisfy the demands of the international banks, which urged Syria to raise the cap and limit on non-Syrian ownership of local banks from 49% to 60%. So basically, you could have foreign-owned banks. the straight line that you find with the melting down of these countries, of Egypt, of Tunisia, of Libya, of Syria, the melting down of these countries politically can be traced back to economic policies put into place a decade and a half ago by their leaders at the urging of the United States, at the urging of the United Kingdom, and at the urging of the World Trade the World Trade Organization and the World Bank. Put into place policies that benefit your elites. Tear apart your labor unions. Cut your social safety net. Have we heard this refrain before? I mean, this is the Koch brothers' Tea Party prescription for America. They did it in Syria. They did it in Egypt. They did it in Tunisia. What happened? The people stood up and revolted. Said, what? I just lost my pension? I have no retirement anymore? You just took away my Social Security? You took away my unemployment benefits? You took away my job? You brought foreign-owned companies into our country, and they're taking the profits out of the country, and we're left with nothing? With bupkis? Really? You look at these countries and you see how this has happened, and you have to and look at how neoliberal policies being imposed on Greece and Spain and Portugal are leading to social unrest in those countries, and the rise, by the way, of fascistic parties in Europe. And you have to wonder, how long before it comes to the United States? Or is it already here? And at what point do Americans stand up and say, enough already? Enough of the neoliberal reforms. Enough of the big corporations having their way. We're tired of the corporate shills. We want a policy in this country that benefits first and foremost the people of this country, not the elites. 28 minutes past the hour.